Okay, so here it says Canada poised to become one of the largest suppliers of LNG in the world, according to the energy minister. Well, that's pretty exciting. Um, except, is that a good thing? Is that something we really want to be doing in Canada? There's this argument that, oh yeah, it's gonna make lots of money for us. There's gonna be lots of jobs. You know, Canadian companies are really going to benefit, and we've got all this oil and gas, and we got to sell it. Um, None of that seems to recognize the harm that natural gas is doing in contributing to climate change. And then when it gets burned, carbon dioxide and contributing to climate change again. Climate change isn't some esoteric thing that's out there somewhere. It's costing us billions of dollars a year. In BC, we've had two major floods in the last 4 years, each costing multi-billion dollars in damage to highways and increased strain on our healthcare system and other things like that. Not to mention paying out insurance losses and all that stuff. So all that money isn't getting budgeted into the LNG projects. It's just getting added onto your taxes and your insurance premiums. So let's be wary as people get excited about, ooh, the oil and gas industry thinks it's really great. It's actually kind of rare for a Canadian to work for the oil and gas industry because they don't actually hire that many people compared to other industries like agriculture. Um, and when it comes to GDP, I mean, oil and gas is only contributing 3.8% of our GDP in Canada, which is a drop in the bucket compared to other things that are more important. But they contribute a significant amount of our overall pollution. So this one industry, and now they want to make it bigger. But they got to run a pipeline across an entire province to make this work. And so there's going to be this investment. Didn't we just build a $30 billion pipeline on the taxpayers' dime? Now they want to build another one. Oh, and it's okay. These companies will pay for it, and then they'll take all the profits associated with it. So there's some problems here. We got to look at a few of them. So first of all, let's look at what the minister is saying here. Picture a guy's in a hole putting in a pipe, and he's going along, and he's talking about here's the industry minister, the natural resources minister. He's talking, we could eventually export 100 million tons of LNG per year. Well, that's a pipe dream, quite literally. That's not something we're doing. Something that's really important to understand is LNG requires special facilities that can cool the natural gas to minus 162 Celsius. So, like, that's crazy cold. It takes a lot of energy to refrigerate something like that. Then it gets loaded on a ship. Then the ship goes across the ocean, burning fuel to get there. And then they've got to heat it back up again. They call it regasification. So basically, they're using energy again, maybe burning gas, I don't know, to heat it back up. And then it can be burned. And then when it's burned, it pollutes over there. But we share one atmosphere, so it ends up in our atmosphere, right? But even before that, like, it had to get to the facility. So that pipeline, whether you got to go across salmon-bearing streams or cut down trees or whatever you got to do, there's like this swath of destruction from wherever it's coming out of the ground all the way to um, the location where they're cooling it down and putting it on ships. So, problem is methane leaks, and methane over a 20-year period of time is 80 times more polluting than carbon dioxide in terms of its greenhouse gas um, warming potential. It's global warming potential, GWP. So that's a problem. But then, like, you need to clean up the gas before it goes to this facility. So it's got to be processed. And, if there's flammable parts that they don't want to keep, they just flare it, they just burn it. That's more pollution. I mean, better than releasing it into the atmosphere. But then where's this coming from? Well, it's coming from, oftentimes fracked wells. So we're pumping water, which is, needed for other things like agriculture or, drinking. Um, that's being pumped underground in order to fracture the landscape, which can even cause earthquakes. In BC, it has, anyways. Um, and then that pressure, they're trying to get at this gas and release it from under the ground, let it into the atmosphere, or in this case, capture most of it and ship it. So it's just not good. Um, so he's saying, from a Canadian perspective, just from an economic perspective, they're among the most impactful projects we can do. Um, I don't see the numbers here, so that's just kind of a statement that doesn't seem to really be specified. And he's not going to elaborate on which projects would help Canada become the top. We're the world's sixth largest exporter behind countries like Australia and Qatar. Well, maybe that's true. But if we go to Statista, and we look at the biggest LNG exporters, look, there's Australia at 108 billion cubic meters. They're using a different measurement there. In Qatar, the United States, like those are big exporters. And then Russia, Malaysia, Nigeria. You're going to hear about Malaysia again in a second. Nigeria, Algeria, Indonesia. Like Canada's late to the game. We're not on this list, right? So we're not the biggest liquefied natural gas exporters. We're coming into a mature market that already has, players who have already made their investment and they're producing and they're shipping and they've got agreements with these ships and buyers. So like we're coming in late and saying, "Hey guys, what about us too?" Uh, I don't think that's a very competitive position to be in. We're not a first mover by any means. We're going to talk about Australia too, but let's move on. Just to mention, I volunteer with Fraser Valley Climate Action, and that's why I'm doing this. Um, so we got to understand the impact that LNG can have on affordability, on our economy here. So, jobs, 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 money, money, money. But that's only one part of it. The other one is how much are we paying for natural gas now? So if you heat your house with natural gas and you pay, I don't know, $100 a month or something like that, um, if we have the same experience that Australia had when they opened up their market to LNG exports, their gas prices domestically tripled. So if you're paying 100 now, maybe you could expect to pay 300 a month later. Yeah, the energy minister isn't talking about that. And affordability is really important to Canadians. So that is part of the equation that is not being talked about when these lobby groups from the oil and gas industry are, you know, trying to wine and dine our politicians or whatever they do. They got way more money and way more time than you and I've got, and they're out there bending their ear. But you got to know this. Our domestic price for natural gas is likely to go up. So that'll make things more expensive for Canadians. Why? Well, because now it's not just the local natural gas companies selling locally. They have the option to put it on a pipe and send it overseas where maybe somebody wants to pay more for it. And so why would they sell it to you? Like you're just a customer. You're not anything special to them. They'll sell it to the highest bidder. And I think you know enough about companies to understand that's probably true. So in Queensland, the LNG export industry has failed to live up to the hype. It's been plagued by cost blowouts. Remind you of a pipeline we just built. That wasn't for gas, but anyways, billions in asset write-downs. And if they write down assets, then that reduces their profitability, and then they don't pay taxes, right? So these corporations are way better at playing this game than us citizens are. So the Queensland government's expectations of an LNG revenue bonanza have not been met. The gas royalties remaining lackluster by international standards. You know, hey, Australia's gone first. They're testing the water out. It doesn't look that good, guys. And as contracts expire, the industry faces a global supply glut. You hear that? There's lots of LNG out there. So if we get our LNG out there, we'll get paid a low price, not a high price. Now, it might be higher than domestic, right? All things considered. And stiff competition from cheaper overseas producers. Well, overseas would mean anyone not in Australia. Exporting LNG has shackled Eastern Australia's gas supply to a volatile global market, driving up gas prices, constraining local supply, and forcing manufacturers to close. And this is the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, right? So not the gas industry and not the tree hugger, granola eating hippie industry, right? So somebody who measures these things for a living. And so they talk about these. But I think this subheading here is just really, really important. The exports drove the tripling of Eastern Australia gas prices, and that's terrible in terms of affordability and what that's done for people. The financial analyst there. And So one of the things you saw in that article and that I mentioned briefly is that the demand is softening. And so the China demand is soft. It's not as high as expected. That's a nice graphic. Um, and so they're saying spot prices for LNG, liquefied natural gas, in Asia have drifted lower despite solid demand in the top consuming region, blah, 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 blah. Throw in tensions in the Middle East. Yeah, the spot price seems incongruous. They're saying, okay, I'm not an economist, but it's saying the spot price slipped. That's down. So that's not very good. If we're supposed to make money on this, right? Yeah. So um, here's the imports. You see Europe's importing some, Asia's importing. Do you see this going up and up and up? No, it's level, right? It's not really going up. It's basically flat. Is Europe importing a bit more? Yeah, maybe. Could have something to do with the Ukraine war, perhaps. Um, good to know. Um, they're calling that a surge. I think that's exaggeration. Let's look at the International Energy Agency. After peak in mature markets, global gas demand is set for slower growth in coming years. Okay, so they're saying it's peaked, or at least maybe the acceleration has peaked, to be generous, right? So they're saying they think emerging economies will support overall demand, but the LNG supply is likely to ease market strains. So yeah, this was the quote I wanted to share with you. The global gas demand is on course to grow by an average of 1.6% a year. Is that a lot of growth? Um, Down from an average of 2.5%. So the growth rate is leveling off. It's dropping, right? So I don't know. These oil and gas companies are saying we're going to make lots of money, and the oil minister. I'm sorry, the natural resources minister. Is that who he was? Energy minister. That's what he is. I just call it the gas minister and get it over with. It was oh we can be one of the leaders in the world. Do we want to do that? I don't know if that's a good idea. So we know we're not the biggest. We know we're going into a mature market. We know that when Australia had their experience of opening up their natural gas to the world through LNG, that it tripled their domestic prices. That is not good, guys, not for affordability. And we know that the demand is softening. So maybe if we're going to make a lot of investments, maybe the investors are going to be left holding the bag um, when the loans get called in. So let's look at one more thing. There's this claim that there's all this economic activity that's going to come from this. Let's look at LNG Canada. That's a project that's in already. And let's look at the ownership. So we're going to just look at the owners here in this little box here. And you can see the owners Shell. And so Shell is a British multinational oil and gas company headquartered in London. So that's not Canadian. There's Petronas, a Malaysian multinational oil and gas company headquartered in Kuala Lumpur. That's not Canadian. That's 65%. There's PetroChina. I don't have to tell you where that is. That's not Canadian. There's Mitsubishi Corporation. Thank you, Japan. That's not Canadian. And there's Korea Gas. So if we add these up, 65, 70, 80, 95, 5. What percentage of Canadian ownership do you see there? Zero. So LNG Canada is operating here. Oh, yes, but the joint venture has their office in Calgary. Oh, good, it's Canadian. It's not Canadian. It has the name Canada in it, which probably is false advertising. But I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say that. And so they're exporting LNG from these processing units, putting it on ships and sailing across the ocean and selling it. And there's this whole write-up about it. So that project was, underway for quite a while from 2010 on. We're in 2026 now. It's 15 years. So, and they did ship in 2025. That was their first shipment. Does it say when on here? No, don't think it says. Okay, I won't read the article in front of you. It's not kind. So let's talk about the process chain. So this is from this is from an industry group that promotes LNG, and they're saying you have this raw gas free feed, and then you have gas treatment, and you have condensate, and then you have liquefaction, and you get your LPG and ethane. I'm not a petrochemical engineer, so I won't comment too much there. And you store it for a bit, and then you put it on a ship and you transport it. That is not an LNG ship. They usually have big balls on them. Um, and then it goes to the other side, and they have a storage facility there. And then you regasify it, you heat it up, and then gas sales. That's the end. So there's some things that are conveniently missing here. Do you notice the regasification icon shows little flames? Yeah, so they're just going to be burning that fuel to heat the rest of the fuel. So that's going to produce pollution, of course. And if you want to talk efficiency, you're losing efficiency because you have to put all the energy into refrigerate it to minus 162 Celsius and then to heat it back up to room temperature or whatever. So all that energy going in and then coming back out, like you're not getting it back, right? You're losing it on both sides. Not to mention the energy to ship it across the ocean. So that's all just sort of wasted energy. It's not efficient. But let's go. It ends at gas sales. That's very convenient. It doesn't end at gas sales. It ends at the gas gets burned, it gets combusted. So if you have leakage there, then you're leaking methane. We talked about how methane is a powerful greenhouse gas, much more powerful than CO2. And then you burn it, and then you get the CO2 out of it. Um, there's no clean gas. The gas burns and produces a pollution. And this is specifically whether it's methane or whether it's CO2. These are gases that are significantly responsible for global warming and the climate disasters that we're seeing more and more frequently across Canada. Think of our forest fires, all that smoke in the sky, or the forests that aren't growing anymore that are um, drying out, or think about the floods we've had in BC, or some of the other things we've had, some of the challenges maybe even farmers are seeing as we get into drought years and that sort of thing. Those are the costs. Um, so let's go back to the beginning of this. The raw gas feed, where's that coming from? Well, that's the fracking we were talking about. That's the drilling and all those wells that maybe are still leaking because they get abandoned when they don't make enough money, right? So this supply chain is convenient because it's just looking at the middle part and ends in magical sales and comes from a magical feed, but both ends are really messy too. So yeah, this is really messed up. And then the energy minister has the audacity to say like, oh, but it's okay, guys, we're going to power the liquefaction with hydropower. Well, that's good. I mean, you could be burning baby whales or something, but yes, hydropower is cleaner, but that's not the point. The pollution comes when the stuff gets burned. We're talking like 90% of the pollution is when the stuff gets burned, right? And so saying, but we used hydropower to refrigerate it, it's a drop in the bucket. The energy minister also goes on to say, oh, and Canada has a colder climate, so it'll save us energy. It's like the average temperature between Prince Rupert and Texas, the average difference in temperature is 14 degrees Celsius. The refrigeration is 162 minus Celsius. So, like, it's not even 10% off. So, like, why is he even saying this? It's like he's just repeating talking points that some industry person, lobbyist, said in his presence. And he's just like pulling out these cue cards or something. So I'm not very impressed by this. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's going to hurt Canadians economically where it counts, their monthly heating bills, um, as we get exposed to those markets. I think it's going to hurt us in terms of pollution and destruction of biodiversity as we build these projects. It's going to make our electricity more expensive because we're not just going to be putting electricity into homes, but we're going to be having to share it with this very energy intensive industry that we're having to run electrical wires out to power. And we're going into a mature market. There isn't this huge opportunity. It's like others are there first and they're better at it, quite frankly. And then it's not even Canadian owned in many cases. I know there are some projects that would be more Canadian owned, Um, but where's the risk sitting? Is the risk going to sit on the shoulders of First Nations who are partners, and they're going to be left holding all that debt when they can't sell that gas overseas? Uh, I think this is ill-conceived. I don't think it's a good idea. And yeah, I think there's some serious problems here. So yeah, if you want to learn more about climate change, this isn't an LNG webpage or anything, but you can come check us out at Fraser Valley Climate Action, fvclimateaction.org. We'd love to have you join as members. We tend not to send too many emails, so we don't have a lot of meetings, but we do speak on behalf of our members and we do advocate constantly. So yeah, if you'd like to join us, we'd like to add your voice to the pile as we write on behalf of our members and ask government leaders, business leaders, and individuals to learn more about climate change and to do what they can to stop it. All right. Thanks for your help. Thanks for listening this long. It would actually really be helpful if you would click like. I know it seems like a very small thing, but the way YouTube works, having videos liked actually helps more people to see them. And if you want to see more things we produce in the future, we do not produce content regularly. We're not influencers. We're not content producers, but we do put videos up every now and then. If you click subscribe, that would really help us too. All right. Have a great day. Take care.